what are we talking about today?
Well, Mama, we have decided that we would explain the complications and the joys of the seahorse bell. A seahorse is an animal that has always fascinated me. Uh, they look like they'd be so unstable. They aren't very flexible um, because they have such a large exoskeleton, and they always hang around literally vertically and flick their tails to become mobile. So the problem was that in order to make a bell, a clapper needs to ring freely a little bit. And if it is very long clapper from the top of the bell clear down to here, then if I make it just a single piece, it's just going to swing and not develop any striking force. And so I've developed in a couple of bells a way to hinge the clapper so that it flicks like the wrist of my hand here, so that you get a very much more active strike on the bell part by the
sound
clapper.
bell?
Yeah. So that was the problem, and the way I solved it, because I love the form of the seahorse. I love the patterning that I created, making it hollow. Of course, seahorses are not hollow, but to give the effect of all of those parts that make a seahorse interesting. And it also has a separate clapper or a separate pendant loop, as many bells do. So it's got two parts to the clapper, one part for the bell, one part for the pendant loop.
The bell.
So it's actually four castings to make up this bell. And in order to do that, then we made a mold. I made a mold of the larger part of the bell. Here's the opening for the wax to be injected. We've already pulled that wax out, but this is a 3-part mold, so that this part would pull out of the wax in the mold like this, so that it can be removed easily while it's being hugged by the sides of the mold, and then pull out the core.
The core. So talk to me about when you're cutting this mold. You always start at the top where you're injecting, right?
Yes, well, because that's the entrance to the mold, and I can see that in the mold when it's been vulcanized shut, and so I start there and begin pulling it apart at that sprue, the hole for the sprue.
And then you cut the keys.
Yes, the keys.
And then you cut into here. And then is that where you stopped sort of midway point and came down to the bottom and cut this core out?
I need to have keys on both sides of the mold. I use a circular cut
on one
side and a more jagged cut on the other side, so that I know which
side goes in where. Okay. So then you pulled out the core and then you finished cutting the rest of this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And this is the end result is
the body
of the seahorse.
Yeah.
And then up inside, it's hard to see this on this one. It didn't fill, but there's a little
loop that's cast into the top of the bell, and that's what the clapper is attached to. The clapper then is also complicated. This mold has 3 pieces.
It's a gang mold, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're all attached, so that we don't have to deal with each of those pieces separately, so that we can deal with this whole casting that looks like a trident fork, but it holds all the pieces, and so we don't have to handle it 3 times. We can usually handle it just once in the casting, the injection and the casting.
So I'm going to put this back down, and so you cut this one in a similar way.
In that I always start with the sprue hole, the opening, because that's the entrance. Otherwise, it's just a block of rubber and sealed up tight. And so this way I can follow down the sprue And again, make the keys that allow the piece to the mold to snap back together. And then pulling
that apart. And so with the hooks here on the tail portion, do you just sort of decide which side of the mold it's going to be in, and then you have some chicken scratch cuts that sort of flex, and then you cut it open?
Yes.
And that acts as a
key, and it also acts as a vent to get the air out ahead of the wax.
Okay. Cool. That's quite ingenious. So let's ring the bell one more time. Thanks for talking with us.
Sure.